let's see. Yeah, in terms of narrative games, there's like two or three that I might want to revisit. It's not gonna be quite the same because I think it's a different experience reading things for the first time. But there's like two or three like visual novel-esque, and they're very short too, like very short stories on itch.io that I went through before that I kind of want to revisit and do a read through of. The first one being, it was called it's called like Tear Ripple, I believe. Like that one, I left a lot. I had a really favorable impression of that one, and it has a very poetic quality to it, and it also has it like combines. How should I explain it? It's like it has a poetic quality to it along with a sense of like mystique, and it sort of gets into it very directly, which is it goes in some sections. It talks about things like urban myths and legends and how they can spawn, and yeah, it plays with that idea and some other sort of like I don't know how you, like metaphysics sciencey kind of abstract topics as well. Another one that I want to go through again because this one's interesting because it has like some choices as well. I think it's called Outsider Agent, and essentially it features this. You're playing as a character that's an ant, and then there's like various other insects or like ant queens and stuff like that you sort of like have dialogue with, and then there, there's like options you can choose, and I think, oh, to spoil it, like the main sort of like conceit of it, I guess, off the bat, it's mostly regarding like sort of like collective versus, well, not versus, but like collective and individual kind of thing, like that kind of story trope. But it does so in a way that's just so like so direct in the most literal way with like ants and colonies and stuff, that to me it works very well, because I feel like a lot of stories that attempt this sort of narrative or this sort of genre, which is like, oh, collective or individual or both. I don't know what it is about them, but they most of the time they just feel very heavy-handed to me, and like run into a lot of like weird contradictory kind of aspects or elements, to me at least it feels like. I can't provide any solid examples at the moment, but that's just my impression of most of them that I've gone through at some point. But yeah, this one is just like so direct about it that I feel like it works very well. And yeah, again, something like an insect colony, and the dynamics, like the biology and stuff regarding that, or environmental kind of biology regarding that, is, I feel like it works very well, and it's like the most analogous you can probably get with that kind of story trope. So that's like another game that I want to like go over or revisit at some point. And then I think the third one that I want to go over or like reread is, I think it's called like Job Simulator 9000, and I think it's still in development. I remember reading through it and going through, because this one also has like routes you can take and decisions, but I remember this one I think it's still like a working development, and they're developing like, or they're like going, they're still writing some of the, fleshing out some of the routes and stuff. Okay, so whereas a lot of games in this sort of area, I don't know how to describe them entirely, or a lot of like visual novels in this medium. It's like the wacky shut-in. I guess some might call it like Dempa. Um, what would you even call it? Like, okay, it would be like sort of like the cutesy horror kind of trope, um, where the visuals for the most part are usually very like bubbly or cute, and then at some point there's like dark psychological twists or whatever here and there. And to be honest, I feel like that genre needs to like take a break for a little bit. I think a lot of people have echoed a similar sentiment, but yeah, I don't know, genre featuring like cutesy characters and a quote-unquote like subversive dark elements or whatever, it needs to take a backseat for a little bit and like sort itself out, because I don't know, it mostly does feel like, what would you even call it? It feels like streamer reaction bait tier, or that kind of thing, where it's mostly like about regarding like clip farming, and most of the people probably watch these videos and skip to like a very specific section of the video to see the reaction or whatever. And I guess that's okay, but aside from that, I don't feel like they have as much, I guess, like depth as they could. Not that everything needs to, obviously. I think it's like fine for the most part, and I think it does resonate with some audiences and their circumstances. It can be a sort of like outlet kind of thing, like a cathartic kind of outlet, or something that feels a little bit relatable in some ways. But in terms of like its quote unquote like healthiness, and like the effects that it produces, I'm a little bit dubious, or I'm not like entirely sure how I feel about that. Like okay, so I guess wrapping back to why I kind of like the game I was talking about, what was it, like Job Simulator 9000, I think that's the name of the game. It does feature a sort of like not entirely cutesy, but like somewhat charming / cutesy art style, and it does, I would say, have quote unquote like dark elements to it, similar to other titles in the genre. However, I feel that there are things about it that differentiate it a little bit, and I can't say entirely why I feel that way. It's just my impression at the moment, like going through that game, or going through some of the runs. I think it's because some of the runs and sort of like the ending like moments of those runs feel like decidedly optimistic, and not in like a forced way. It feels very like optimistic in a more authentic way, at least to me. And another thing I think I like about it is that it does have some things to say, and some like pragmatic aspects to it that I feel are very interesting, and invites conversations a little bit more, or like facilitates discussions a little bit more than some other titles of the genre. And yeah, so I think that's something that I'll try to revisit at some point. So I have like three, I have like three very short, they're all very short, kind of like short story, visual novel kind of games to go over. Oh, there's another one that I wanted to play. It's like a card mechanics title, or a card mechanics kind of based game, and it has a very interesting design, or it's going for something very, very interesting. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. I don't think the mechanics of the game are quite entirely like other card-based games, other like popular card-based games. Not that I've like played many of them, but yeah, and I don't think it's like, I think it's more like a beta kind of title as well. But I remember it has a very charming art style as well. And also I remember the song, there's like the soundtrack in that game was really good. Like there were a few tracks, or I think it was only just like one or two tracks, but they're very memorable. So I want to revisit that game for sure. And so, I mean, some of the cards have some very interesting names as well, and very interesting descriptions. What was it? What was it called? I think it's called like World Gaiden, World Pole Gaiden something. Something like that. And yeah, so that's something I'll try next. Or I've tried it before, but it's also like incredibly short. There was one more game that I wanted to try. Or I mean, there's a lot actually, but there's one more that I wanted to revisit particularly. What was it? What was it? I forgot. But okay, actually, there's like another game that I also want to touch on or like revisit and talk about. And I did a recording of it already, like one playthrough, but I'm probably going to do a re-recording of it. And the issue with that game is that it requires a lot more concentration, for me at least. It is another card mechanics kind of game. And it's very exact, or it's like you just have to like play the cards in a very exact order, so it requires a little bit more concentration. And I don't think there's much I can talk about outside of the game when I'm playing that game. Like everything that any sort of like commentary when I'm playing that game, which it's called Dimwood, by the way. Any commentary that I would provide for that game would be like very contained, I think. But I do sort of like this game, for example, in comparison, where I don't feel like I have to talk almost at all about the game mechanics or like the game itself as much. Or I do sometimes, like here and there. But especially in these earlier sections, it allows for so much like stream of consciousness. It's something that I really, really enjoy about this game, and I'll keep repeating over and over. The points, again, in a heavy-handed way, sort of jump from hold to hold, from ladder to ladder, to pipe to pipe, from pipe to pipe, and pipe to pipe. Pipe to pipe communication. The internet is a series of tubes. But yeah, I something about this game facilitates a sort of stream of consciousness and delivery that I really enjoy a lot. And I think that's strange, because there was this one time that I didn't even watch the video, but I saw a thumbnail for a video online, and the caption or the title was something like how parkour facilitates like cognitive functions or something like that. And I think probably the argument in that video, or like I don't know, like the thesis of that video probably is something like moving around in an urban environment and finding different ways or like configurations to like move between stuff, or jump from thing to thing, jump from a bench to another bench, or jump from like the curb of a fountain to another like pole or something, like that probably does facilitate something. I mean, it probably, I mean, yes, it obviously generates activity, like cognitive activity, but I think it's probably partially about like pathfinding or routes, and like in a way the sort of like pathfinding or routes and navigating through an environment kind of like maps very directly to a stream of consciousness in some cases, I think, especially if the environment itself is not like entirely immediately threatening. For example, like if it was like a very dangerous environment that requires like almost 100% attention and focus, then yeah, I don't think you can provide like commentary on miscellaneous topics as easily. But if it's an environment that is like has a little bit of like a challenge to it, I guess, and is also kind of familiar in some ways, I think you can definitely facilitate a sense of like stream of consciousness and kind of like various modes of thinking or thought, or like tangents and things like that. So yeah, again, didn't watch the video, but I'm kind of guessing that was what that was kind of about. Speaking of, I've been kind of getting into like algorithmic diagrams again, and charts, and I don't really know that much about like diagram or like sort of like algorithms or charts or diagrams to begin with, or coding for that matter. But the diagrams and the charts are very pretty to look at. They're very nice. But essentially, I had this idea for like a drawing thing where on any given like image posting platform, for example, that features like an algorithmic kind of suggestions kind of system, where you're like, you click on one image and then you get like a bunch of recommended images afterwards to save to your board or whatever, so like Pinterest or something. Yeah, I have like some boards on my Pinterest account where I do like this little like sort of a game, for me at least, which is I'll start with like a particular image. It can be something that I choose directly or just kind of like randomly tap on, and then from there I will like go in a very specific sequence, and it's like a very basic sequence to start with, which is like the rule is that I'll only tap on one image, and then like whatever is suggested, I'll tap on the next image, and then I won't backtrack. But I'll have like one. I can backtrack like one image per quote unquote run, I guess. But for the most part, I'm just like tapping through images and going through like the suggestions in like a very direct kind of way, and then seeing where that takes me. So I'll probably go through like 5 to 10 images on a given run, so to speak. And I don't know, something about that. Like I've done this recently, and it feels kind of rewarding in some ways, and a little bit more active than kind of just like passively scrolling and clicking and saving images, which, to be fair, has some application and has some like arguments in favor of it, probably. I think one, it is very much a more flowy thing, and you don't have to like overly think about it, and it can facilitate some interesting things. Or okay, I'm just being overly vague, but anyway, I think the thing that I'm trying now, where it feels a little bit more deliberate and active, I almost feel like the images, like each image that I'm going through, feels more significant in a way. Like I'm putting more of my attention and senses on every image, and that has been it's sort of like, it's like a slight change, but in some ways it feels very, very different than how that was kind of a waste, but how I was like previously scrolling through images and saving things. Because for example, like I would typically, like, for the most part, I would have typically just like gone through a bunch of images and not really count or like think about anything very actively, which is fine again, but it didn't feel like the images themselves were as impactful. It almost feels like they were, I guess, just like consumed in a very passive sort of way. However, now it does feel like the images, like each image that I'm clicking on, there's more of an impact. There's more deliberation, and overall, it feels a little bit more meaningful, at least to me. What? That's never happened before. Why did that? I don't know why that happened. Anyway. Oh. Oh, that actually scared me. I think this is electrified or whatever. Yeah, anyway.